Shalom. Yeah, by Shemi Yashar. Thumb to the brothers. Shalom. Yahanna. Thumb by Shemi Yashar. The sisters. I'm preaching officer Matazo with the I.S.U.P.K. It's the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge under the commanding during Yahanna. We started off 125th, 1 West Harlem, New York. We've been doing this since 1969, and it's bringing the truth to the so-called Blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans, right here in America. And if y'all give me a few seconds, I'm gonna get this shared out. Make sure that everybody is being broadcasted on all our pages. You don't want anybody to miss out, right? I don't know if y'all are tracking. Kanye West recently had a table interview, whatever the case may be, right? It's a lot. And during that table interview, he said some things that were very controversial. And just like, anything else that we put up here in the school, the world want to deem it, something hate or hate speech, But guess what? We don't deal with hate speech. We deal with love talk. We're gonna break that down today as far as the things that are required of us as a nation of people. And again, just to just shed light on what's really going on in the world. That if you're not privy to it now, after this class, you'll have a better understanding of what's going on and why it's very important for the so-called Blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans to gather themselves together. You know what I'm saying? And come and do the will of the Most High God. Now, I'm not saying be a Christian. There's a difference. I'm saying come into this truth and do the things that are required of you, the things that are pleasing to the Most High God, right? Now, again, what recently transpired, I'm going to get into these scriptures in just a second. What recently transpired is Kanye has openly said, hey, we are the Jews. The so-called Blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans here in America, we are the Jews. He goes on to explain how the Jewish people work here in this nation. See, what we don't understand is powers that be. That if you don't understand it, it's war. Everything's at war. This whole system's at war with the so-called Blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans. That's why it's systemic racism. Everything about this system, this nation, is about keeping one people low and keeping one people high. And Kanye goes on to explain how the Jewish own everything, from your banks to your record labels, to your studios, all the stuff that they push that they want you to drive to. Like when I say drive to, I'm talking about the Jewish people even own the basketball. So everything that the so-called Black and Hispanic man, Native American man shoot to esteem for in life, where I can make millions, they own all that. In the process of owning all that, well, they get, guess what? Everything comes with a price. You become the rich and famous, well, now you got to be silent. You can't talk about everything. You can't do everything you want to do. And that's what Kanye he was trying to say. He ran. But the things he was talking about has some truth to it. See, what it is what you have to realize, this world doesn't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to know who you are. So they prohibited anybody of influential to ever open up their mouth and speak of who we are, because their influence on our people is so high, right? It's so high that they're afraid that if somebody of high influence came in here and say, hey, we're all Israelites, and wow, people start asking and inquiring and wondering what it is to be an Israelite. But neither here or there. What happened with Kanye West's interview is the same thing that happens with a lot of our content here in the I.S.U.P.K. It gets kicked off the internet. It's labeled hate talk. And the weird thing about this hate talk is that this system has benefited off the birth of our people.
That's right.
The slavery, right? The work, and even the death of our people. What I mean by that, YouTube sit here and they have tons of videos of us getting beat up, knocked across the head, but yet none of these videos get taken down. None of these videos get removed for violence or racism or anything like that, because it's all about social programming. They'll play these videos all day long and people get paid millions of views. Get paid millions of dollars for these views. And these videos receive millions of views. But as soon as somebody comes in and say, hey, we're the Israelites, and thus said the Lord, now the algorithm's messed up. Now you can have 300 people watching and liking and sharing your videos, and yet your video only have 23 views, or only have about 5 views. The reason why so-called Black men, Hispanic men, and Native Americans is because this world is at war with you. They don't want you to wake up to who you were. You say, what do I mean? How is it that they can tell you everything that happened, AC, BC, DC, AD, and all this stuff? They can tell you everything that happened, dinosaurs and skeletons. They can tell you all that stuff. So-called black men, Hispanic man, Native American man, but they can't tell you what you were doing before slavery.
That's right.
Understand that that is a war tactic in itself. What they've done is by them being able to dictate your past, they programmed your future. Right? If they told you that you were ruling and you were in rulership and you ruled the world before you were a slave, well, if you understood that you were doing that before you were a slave, then guess what? If you understood that, then you understand one thing: get back to business as usual. We need to get back to the top. You would try to ascend back to where you were if you understood that you were kings and priests. If you understood that you ruled the world. But because they start your history from a point of slavery and that you should be happy that they set you free. Well, there goes the social programming right there. They're going to keep you low at all times because you'll never try to ascend back to where you came from. They got you out here, Wakanda and all this African to commit and all this misinformation.
That's right.
They're trying to give you what they call information overload. Now you have all this information you're trying to process, and all of it is foolishness. It's not going to profit you. So like it real quick. Give me Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. Before you do that, give me Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1.
Come on.
We're going to break it down real quick as far as, you know what I'm saying, most of our guys only been dealing with Israel. And we have to understand again, everything that this world has going on is a war attacking and is a means of keeping you low and destroying our people. We have one simple task, and that's to do what the Most High God commanded us to do. Right? So let's get it out the Bible, because the Most High God has warned his people from day one. So like, you go ahead and give me Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1.
Come on. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1. These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel.
To the whole world.
Unto all Israel.
To the whole earth.
Unto all Israel.
To every person on the face of this planet.
Unto all Israel.
This is what Moses spoke unto all Israel. So now that we got the context of who Moses is talking to, go ahead and give me Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6.
Come on.
And before you just hold that for me, because what we have to understand, it's just like writing a love letter or writing something to your loved one. When you write something to your loved one, it doesn't pertain to everybody. It doesn't matter if Joe picks it up. It doesn't matter if Susie picks it up. Everything still holds in the context. Does it make sense? Nobody can pick up a book or pick up a letter that was written to somebody else and say, "Wow, this was meant for me. This is real love." Right? You can't do it. You have to understand that the Bible was written for the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans here in the Americas. That's right. Our history book. Why do I say that? Because, well, the preamble to the Constitution, they said, "We the people." Everybody's born, right? Equality. But when they had the preamble to the Constitution, "We the people," understand your forefathers were still in slavery. So we understand that when they were writing that and quoting those words, that did not pertain to the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American. And to this day, those words do not pertain to us. When they wrote those words, they wrote that part of the Constitution, we were still slaves.
That's right.
We were still getting beat across the head. We were still getting shot, hung, drugged during that time period. So there's no way that the preamble to the Constitution pertained to us. Now we're looking at the Bible. The Bible was written by us, for us, right? By the Most High God, by our God. We just read in Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1. It says, "These be the words that Moses spake unto all Israel." Now let's see what the Most High God says. Because the world tells you that everybody's created equal, even though the so-called Black man, Hispanic man, Native American man, to this day, still gets injustice. We don't get any justice, right? We get no justice. And kind of again, what Kanye was breaking out, which we've been talking about this in the truth since 1969, is disassociation. So you understand, Christians were KKK members were Christians. They used to burn crosses on your forefather's yard. This is what I mean by disassociation. As soon as somebody of the Caucasian race or the pink race, they go out here and mass murder and kill a bunch of people, they disassociate that person. They say, "Oh, that was isolated. It was just that one person." But let somebody of color do something. Well, now we all, they put us all in the box. All African Americans are super predators. All African Americans are killers and dope. See what I'm saying? They're so quick to put the whole negative connotation on a whole group of people when it can be one of us. But when it's one of them, oh, that's just him. We all nice people. Understand that person's acting on his right natural instincts because he's acting exactly how they did. They want to sit here and pretend. We saw exactly how racist they were when Trump was in office. They were able to show their true colors then, weren't they? But let me stop ranting. But here we go. This is what the Most High God said about the so-called blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans. Let's see if he said they're equal to every man and woman on this earth. Go ahead and read what you got.
Come. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 6. For thou art an holy people.
For thou art an holy. Holy means to be separate. The Most High God separated us unto him. But go ahead and continue reading.
Unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God had chosen thee to be a special people unto himself.
He chose who to be a special people?
Thy.
The thy, what we understand in Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1, are the Israelites. That's who Moses is speaking to. So Moses is saying, the Most High God has chosen thy, the so-called blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans, to be a chosen people. Go ahead, continue reading.
Unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth.
No, we're equal.
Above all people.
Above all people is what the Most High God said. He chose us above all people. Right? Let's see if it was because we were mighty. Was it because we were a big and mighty nation? Let's find out. Go ahead and read that next one for me.
Come. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 7. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because you were more in number than any people.
He didn't choose us because we were more than any number than any people. Go ahead.
For ye were the fewest of all people.
Because we were the fewest of all people. Right? We're the smallest nation out there, and the Most High God chose us. Go ahead, continue reading.
Come. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 8. Because the Lord had loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, have the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondage from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
Right there. So the Most High God did what he did because of a promise. Now, if we follow the lineage, he's not talking to every nation. So everybody will say, well, we all came from Adam. We all came from Abraham, right? Understand the promise followed Abraham, because Abraham had Ishmael. And from Abraham was Isaac. That's what the promise was. Isaac had two sons, Jacob and Esau. Out of Jacob and Esau, the promise followed Jacob. Jacob was the progenitor of the 12 tribes of Israel. So when it says our fathers, it means Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's why you see it every time in the New Testament. It goes in that lineage. It never says Abraham, Ishmael. It never says Abraham, Isaac, Esau. It's Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, our forefathers. See, the world has got you out here, got you confounded, and got you confused. You think that God is for everybody. God is not for everybody. God has a particular people that he cares about, and that he's going to come back and recompense their whole entire world for the wickedness that they have done to us, because the Most High God sees the atrocities that they do to the so-called blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans. Now, with that being said, understand so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native American man, there are things that are required of us by being God's chosen people. So the next question is, should we move like the rest of the world? Go ahead and give me Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 30, because this is what we're going to find out real quick. This is what we're going to find out. When you're in a place of rulership, you don't eat the same things the peasants eat. When you're in a place of rulership, you don't keep the same customs of the people that you have underneath you, because you're better than them.
That's right.
You're not better than them because of what you do. You're better than them because by keeping the words of the Most High God, that's what makes you better than the other nations. Because we understand by us doing our own will, we're just equivalent to everybody else. But as soon as we start doing the will of the Most High God, that's what separates us and puts us in the place of rulership. Right? Most High God doesn't want us to move like the other nations and eat the same food as the other nations. You got to ask yourself, would you eat the same food your dog eat? Would you eat the same food you feed your cat? So why would you eat the same food that no people eat? Because their delicacies and things they call things of delicacy is bottom feeders, shrimp, crab, and lobster, and pork butt. Everything they call it, everything they consider a delicacy is bottom feeders, trash feeders. But yet we sitting here, we lining up in indulging in this type of behavior because they say it, then it has to be. That's a lot. Go ahead and read what you got.
Con. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 30. Take heed to thyself that thou be not snared by following them.
Right there, hold up. Be not snared by following them. Who's the them he's talking about? By following the other nations, by doing the things that America does. That is a snare unto you, so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native American man. Doing the things that of the heathen cultures is a snare unto you. If it be Asian, if it be Caucasian, if it be of Muslims, if it be of Kemet, African, all those are a snare unto you to your own destruction. The Most High is giving you a warning. Don't do as they do. Go ahead and continue reading.
Con. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 30 continue. After that they be destroyed from before thee, and that thou inquire not after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods?
So he's saying, when I destroy these nations from before you, do not inquire on how they serve their gods. Don't wonder. Don't even fathom, hey, don't worry about how they serve their gods. Why is that? Go ahead and continue reading.
Con. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 30 continue. Even so I will do likewise.
He's saying, don't think that you'll do likewise. Do not serve me like the other nations. So this is what Christianity does. They'll say, well, I can do Thanksgiving because I'm doing it in the name of the Most High God. I can do Christmas because I'm doing it in the name of the Most High God. And if that don't work for anybody, then we'll say, well, we're doing it for the kids. Don't you want your kids to have fun? I don't want my kids to have fun. I want my kids to be obedient. Because through obedience is where they find life. Through disobedience is where they find death. So if I love my children, I will not let them have, because what somebody said, having fun, because remember, for Caucasian people, at one point having fun was hanging black folks and having a picnic.
That's right.
You gonna let your kids do that? At one point, for white folks, having fun was going and destroying the whole black community. You gonna let your kids do that? Well, guess what? If your kids in gangs, your kids sell drugs, be out here gunning down your people, you're doing exactly that. You're doing exactly what the so-called white people did to our nation back when we were slaves. And that's what they considered fun. And that's why they were able to retire. They don't have to do it anymore because all they got to do is bring drugs and guns to the communities and you'll do it for them. They ain't got to worry about getting the posse together and running down and riding into your town and gunning down people, because guess what? You'll do it for them. They got you so beat down and so broken that you'll kill your own people for them. You'll set your own people up and devise wicked plans the same way they did your forefathers and think nothing of it. This is why the Most High God says brotherhood. Keeping the commandments is how you love one another. Because through brotherhood, you won't gun down your brother. You won't sell drugs to your brother. You won't do evil to your brother. You'll love your brother as you love yourself. And then that's when we'll start to rise. Let's lock you real quick. Go ahead and give me Maccabees. I think it's Maccabees chapter 1, verse 43. Because we're gonna get down to it, because you have to understand everything that this world does is war. It's about keeping you in a state of oppression. By keeping you in the system and devising plans to keep you low. Every opportunity they get to throw the book at you, they're gonna throw the book at you. It could be this cat stole a bag of chips. Put every charge you can on this brother's record. So next time he do something, he getting light. We can go ahead and throw him into the prison system. That's what they do to our people. But yet they can have 23-year-old white males be what do you call it? When they rape more than one person.
Serial rapists.
Yeah, they can be serial rapists. And they look at this 20-year-old white boy and say, look, he has a bright future before him. Let's not throw the book at him. Let's give him a second chance. But then they turn around and tell your 12-year-old child that he's an adult. Your 13-year-old child, he's an adult.
Right.
Let's give him full time in the penitentiary. Let's throw him in prison because we need to get the scum off the streets. How is it that we're scum, and yet they look at a grown man and he's a little boy who has a bright future? Come on, so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native American man, understand that this nation is not for you. Salaki, you got that for me? So the one thing that Christianity does, because Christianity is part of this system, you have to understand. Christianity is a direct connection to this government system in keeping you low. Because they say, hey, forgive your enemies. Love your enemies, and that's not what God was saying. Not at all, but they'll tell you this. And then on top of that, they'll tell you that the law has been done away with. Why is that? Because you not keeping the law, so-called black man, Hispanic man, and Native American man, that's how they're able to keep you low. That's how they're able to destroy you. Well, let's go ahead and get it from the Bible real quick on what it is that they're doing. You got that for me?
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 43. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion.
Right there. So religion. See, the world created religion. See, even many of the wicked men of Israel consented to this religion. Go ahead, continue reading.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 43 continued. In sacrifice unto idols and profane the Sabbath.
So right here, we're starting to see a line that they're starting to do the things of they're not pleasing God. They're sacrificing unto idols and they're profaning the Sabbath, which means they're not keeping the Sabbath day anymore. Why is that? Continue reading.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 44. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah.
Right there. So the king of the world at the time, the king, right? He sent letters unto the Jerusalem and unto Judah. Right? Jerusalem being Israel, Judah being the Jews. He sent letters unto these nations, right? Go ahead and continue reading.
Come. First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 44 continued that they should follow the strange laws of the land.
Right here, that they may follow the strange laws of the land. Go ahead and continue reading.
Come. First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 45. And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifices and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbath and the festival days.
Right there. So the king sent letters into Jerusalem and Judah, Jerusalem being Israel, Judah being the Jews, right? I just want to have you understand what he's doing. He forbid them from keeping God's laws. He said, don't keep God's laws. Don't keep none of the feast days. He forbid it, right? That's what I'm trying to explain. A lot of things that we openly accept today, our ancestors were beaten, killed, and hung trying to keep these days. The things we openly accept today, they died fighting to not do, right?
That's right.
So let's see what happened. We understand that the king sent letters and he forbid them from keeping their law. But let's say what they wanted to continue to keep the law. Let's say the king sent these letters and said, you know what? Forget it. We're going to do what God says. We're not going to do what the king says. Let's see what the decree the king said for anybody who continues to try to do the will of the Most High God. What happened to these people? Go ahead and continue reading.
First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 46. And pollute the sanctuary and the holy people. And holy people.
Continue.
Verse 47. And set up altars and groves and chapels of idols and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
Continue.
Verse 48. That they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
Continue.
Verse 49. To the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. Verse 50. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king.
Whosoever wouldn't do the commandment of the king, whosoever would not give up the laws of the Most High God, right? Those who continue to want to serve God, what happened to them? Go ahead.
And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said, he should die.
They should be put to death. Whoever decided to continue to serve the Most High God was put to death.
Right.
This was the decree they gave unto Israel, God's chosen people. God said, keep my commandments and live, right? And if you do the things of the other nations, they shall be a snare unto you. So when the decree came out saying, don't keep God's laws, do our feast days, do our holidays, do our Thanksgiving, our Christmases, our Easters. Do not the things of the Most High God, but do the things of the world. Because if you don't do the things of the world, we're going to kill you. We're going to put you to death. Why was this important? Understand this was a strategic decision that the king made. It wasn't something he just fabricated out of air. It was precise, with precision, and it was a means of a militant action.
That's
How do we
right.
know this? Give me Judas chapter 5, verse 20.
Come.
Understand that these wicked nations understood our power. Our power came through obedience. Us doing the will of the Most High God meant the end of the other nations. It meant the other nations could not rule. As long as we were obedient, they were brought low, and we were high.
That's right.
But as soon as they got any type of power and dominion, the first thing they made sure they do was put out a decree that we don't follow our God, that we remove ourselves from our God and do the things of the world. Why? Because if you understand war, it's about, we have to get you in the place of, how you say, weakness. Your weakness is, like Superman, his weakness is kryptonite, so everybody's always trying to create some kryptonite cloud or they try to get a piece of this kryptonite because that's the only thing that makes Superman weak. But for the nation of Israel, our kryptonite is disobedience. Us being disobedience to the Most High God, or being drawn away from the Most High God. Well, we get our heads pummeled, we'll get beat, we'll get destroyed, we'll get killed.
That's right.
When we're obedient to the Most High God, we win every time. How do we know this? If you look at David, David was able to take armies out. Thousands of men he would take out, and thousands of men would come back home. Nobody died. What war do you know has been since King David that people go out and everybody come home? Every war has casualties. I mean, casualties even on the side of that's going out to war, right? We see that with America. There's always casualties every time they go out to war. But when King David took thousands, when he was under obedience to the Most High God made sure that every man that went out there came back home. That's how our power moves. We didn't lose no battles, nor did we lose men.
That's right.
But now through disobedience, we're losing all across the board. We can't win if somebody gave us the winning card, because the system is set up against us. And keeping the laws by us not keeping the laws is how they keep us at a low place. Again, you better read real quick on how we know that the decision that the king made was precise, with precision, and it was militant, and it was meant to keep us low. Go ahead and read what you got.
Judith chapter 5, verse 20. Now therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error in this people.
Pause right there. So I'm gonna give some context. What's happening right now is a servant is giving advice to his leader, to his ruler. He's letting them know, hey, Lord, if it be any error in these people are not doing what the Most High God has commanded them. He's giving him game on how to move with us, right? Because up to this point, every nation had been destroyed or had given in to this nation of people, but Israel hadn't. We hadn't backed down. We hadn't even thought about giving up because we are a nation. We are a warring nation, the nation of the Most High God. Why are we going to bow down to just anybody, right? So this king is inquiring, why is this one? Why out of all these nations, how come this nation is not giving in? What is this nation's weakness? He's inquiring from his cabinet, from his people, right, on how to destroy this nation's people. Go ahead and read that from the top and read loud for me.
Judith chapter 5, verse 20. Now therefore, my Lord and Governor, if there be any error in this people, and they sin against their God, let us consider that this shall be their ruin.
He said, let us consider that this shall be their ruin. He's saying, if there be any error, if this nation sin, Let's go up. We guarantee the dub. These people are not winning if they're against their God. But let's see what they say would happen if we were keeping the commandments and doing the things of our God. Let's see what they say. Go ahead.
Judith chapter 5, verse 20 continues. That this shall be their ruin, and let us go up, and we shall overcome them. Verse 21. But if there be no iniquity in their nation,
if there be no sin in this nation of people, go ahead.
Let my Lord now pass by.
He's saying, don't touch him. Don't even look at him. Just pass by. Just keep driving. Just keep going. Don't even go up there. If they doing what the Most High God wants them to do, you better not even go knock on the door. That's what he's saying. Go ahead, continue reading.
Judith chapter 5, verse 21 continue. Lest their Lord defend them and their God before them, and we become a reproach before all the world.
Unless we be destroyed before all the world. Right? So they already knew the game plan. They knew that if we were obedient, it meant the end of them. And if we're disobedient, it meant they were winning every time. Wouldn't you want to go to war knowing you're going to win? Guaranteed win? Guaranteed dub? Well, that's what America and every other nation around about did. By them ensuring that we sin, they had a guaranteed dub.
That's right.
They was like, we can go to war whenever. We can go to war half sleep. We can go to war with no weapons. As long as they sinning, we win.
Right.
Right? And so this is why it's important, so-called black man, Hispanic man, Native American man, to understand, one, who you are. You are the Israelites the Bible speaks of. You are God's chosen people. Don't let the church or this world tell you that it doesn't matter anymore, because it does. The Bible wouldn't dedicate 2 whole books, Chronicles, to genealogy that then turn around and say it doesn't matter. That's the world trying to misinform you or confuse you with their tactics. Right? Let's go ahead and get at the Bible. Go ahead and give me Deuteronomy chapter 30. Let's see what the Most High God says about if we keep it, when we come back and start keeping his commandments, what he'll do for his people. Right? Because we sit here and we believe that they tell us that heaven is we got to sit here and if we believe and play video games the rest of our life and we die, everybody go to heaven. Have you ever realized that every funeral, no matter how bad the person was, they got pictures with him in the clouds and little Tommy's in heaven now. Let's get out of the fairy tale. God is very logical and very real. It's like women know they wouldn't be in no relationship unless, things were going a certain way. Don't sit here and let the world baffle you in confusion, believing that the Most High God can sit here and let you do whatever you want to do, and then you're going to get into the kingdom. That's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work. It doesn't work with any relationship on this earth. So what makes you think all of a sudden when it comes to God, it's going to work? The Creator. Lock, go ahead and read what you got.
Come on. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1.
Come
on. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curses, which I have set before thee.
Pause right there. The blessings and the curses, right, that the Most High God sent upon Israel. We're going to get to that here in just a second, but I want to show you what the Bible says about his people. So they sit here, they got you thinking that you can sit here and be in a house and be lackadaisical and move however you want to. It doesn't make sense. When you hop into a car that did whatever it wants to do when you were driving, I don't think anybody will hop into a car that did whatever it wants to do. If I hop in my car and get to doing its own thing, I'm scrapping it. I'm destroying it. It's getting scrapped. So don't think that the Most High God wants you to sit here and you can do whatever you want to do, and then you're going to get the kingdom. Let's listen to what the Most High God said. God said, let every man be a liar. So if anything a man, this is what I'm trying to say. Let me slow down. God, it says, let every man be a liar, let God be true. So if at any point your pastor says anything that conflicts with the Most High God, then you understand that the rule of thumb is God wins. That means you have to obey God over man. So at any point a man is found to be a liar, then you should stop following that man. Because God says, let every man be a liar and let God be true. So you're saying, how's that work? When we're here in the I.S.U.P.K, we don't add to or we don't take from. Everything that we read is thus said the Lord. We don't come in here and come from a place of, or God spoke to me last night and revealed something. God has to reveal everything he wants us to know is right here in this book. He ain't trying to hide nothing and he ain't about revealing nothing. It's right here. It's in the book. Right? So let's see what the Most High God said about his will and his laws. Go ahead and read what you got.
Come. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1 continue, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee. Verse 2, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God.
When you return unto the Most High God, you're returning to his laws. That's how you return to him. I don't see God out here with his arms like this and people just running to him and he hugging them. So how do you return to the Most High God? The way you return to God is by returning to the things that he commanded you, returning to his words, right? Stop doing what the world has told you to do and do what I told you to do. That's how you return to God. Go ahead, continue reading.
Come. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2 continue, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day.
All. When you say some, see, the world got you thinking that God is like a buffet. You can sit here and open this book and say, you know what? I want to do this today. I think I'm going to do this tomorrow. You know what? I'm going to kind of dissect this and conform this to my life. Most High God says, all my commandments. Go ahead, continue reading.
Come. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 2 continue. Thou and thy children with all thine heart, with all thy soul. Verse 3, that then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee.
Pause right there. So the Most High God says, and then. See, it's a process. See, y'all want to sit here and think the Lord's going to bless you in your wickedness. He said, no, return to me. Do the things that I require of you. Then will I turn your captivity, right? You'll no longer be in captivity. I'm going to remove that captivity from among over you. I will turn your captivity when you return unto me, right? Go ahead and continue reading.
Come. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 33, so like verse 3, continue. And will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee.
Pause right there. So God said he's going to gather us from every nation he scattered us. Nowhere do you see what the Most High God said yet. Go on ahead. He says he's going to gather us from the nations in which we were scattered. But that also pokes a hole in Christianity, because Christianity says whosoever believes, right? Whosoever, that God is going to grab everybody. But that's not the thing. God says he's going to gather us from the nations in which we were scattered. Now, this is the next thing that's going to be said is a key thing, because we have to understand the people who are in America, they are already in their land. Well, those who they're not in their land, you understand, they stole the land. But just follow me real quick. So America is America, Russia is Russia, Asia is Asia, in the middle, the Eastern is the Eastern, right? But the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans and the Israelites, we've been scattered among these nations. So the Most High God said he's going to gather us from among these nations. Now, the next verse is going to make it clear. It should make it clear who God's people are. Because these people have been scattered and they're not in their land, right? Go ahead and continue reading.
Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 4. If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. Verse 5. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers.
Oh, right there. How does this work for every other nation? Think about it. Most of the God say he's going to gather us, set us back into the land that our fathers possessed. Past tense, that means they once possessed it. They don't possess it anymore. He's going to set us back into that land where we will then possess the land that our fathers possessed, and he will multiply us. How does that work for the African? The Lord's going to pull the African from where he is and then put him back to where he is, where he can flourish and multiply. Or God's gonna pull the Muslim from his land to put him back into his land. So it doesn't work. It only works for the Israelites who have been scattered, who are no longer in their land. The Most High God's going to gather us from the nations in which we've been scattered. And then he's going to set us back into our own land. And the lands our fathers once possessed, then we don't possess it anymore right now, do we? And then at that point, we will possess it. That doesn't fit every nation. It doesn't fit every people. See how when I'm talking about how they give you misinformation? And with this misinformation, they can misguide you and have you doing things contrary to the Most High God. The Bible is logical. Everything in the Bible is logical and and practical. They're not making any sense with the things that they say. It's a straight up fallacy. They're just making up stuff. Everybody can be saved. That's not biblical. Go ahead and continue reading.
Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 6. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart and the heart of thine seed to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live.
Oh, that's right there. So he says, he's going to circumcise your heart is your mind, that you love the Lord, right? Let's see how you love the Lord. Give me 1 John chapter 5, verse 3, I think where I want to start. How do you love the Most High God? Because he said he's going to circumcise you in your mind, your head, your heart, meaning your head, because your mind is the heart, your brain, right? It's the heart of all thought. Everything that your body get ready to do, it starts here. Your hands don't move by themselves. Your heart don't beat by itself. All of that comes from right here. Your mind is the heart. See, the Christianity, they want you to have you in a place of feelings and emotions all the time. God is very practical, and he's not about emotions. Because he doesn't care about how you feel when it comes to keeping his commandments. He don't care if you feel sad, you feel happy, you feel mad. You better be mad keeping them commandments. You better be sad keeping them commandments. You better be happy keeping them commandments.
That's right.
He don't care about your feelings. Well, I did it because no, he don't care. Right? This is how you love the Most High God. Go ahead and read what you got.
1 John chapter 5, verse 3. For this is the love of God.
For this is the love of God. Go ahead and continue reading.
That we keep his commandments. And his commandments are not grievous.
That we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. This is a light thing. See, for Christians who want to sit here and say you can't keep all the law, well, you have to understand it's grievous for you to keep all the laws, because somewhere deep down inside of you, you don't want to keep the law. So to you, it's grievous. For me, I love the Most High God, so it's a light thing. It's a light thing. If I love my Father, it's a light thing to do the things that please him. When you are a son who's at odds with your father at all times, it's going to always be a hard thing. It's going to be a burden to you. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do that. Man, I got to do this. And for the son who loves his father, he looks forward to doing these things. Right? It's a lot. One last thing. Give me First Corinthians chapter 2, and let's start in verse 6, because I just want to punch a couple of holes in the Christian doctrine, because they'll sit here and have you believing that God's for everybody. We just read in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1 through 6, that God's going to gather his people from the nations in which they've been scattered and set them back into their own land. That mathematical equation, when I say math, it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. You start looking at where the nations are, well, you can't be pulled from your nation that you're in to be put back where you at. Now, for the people who've been scattered, the people who are continually being oppressed at this time, it makes 1,000% makes sense. I'm in a land that's not mine, and I'm being possessed. I'm being oppressed. I'm being brought to a low state. The Most High God is going to deliver me from this low state and from this oppressive nation, a nation that kills my young and my old. That's what the Most High God is going to do. In that day, He's going to give us rest from what? Rest from our enemies, because they don't let us rest at all. We can't sleep good at night because they own us so tough, right? But Salaki, let me not rant too much. Go ahead and read what you got, because some Christians will say, well, Paul was talking to the Gentiles. Well, you gotta understand who the Gentiles were. The Gentiles, read the book of Hosea, and I'm just gonna paraphrase real quick. Matter of fact, I'm gonna give you a quick history. God promised David that Solomon would have peace during his time of reign. Solomon sinned, but because God promised David that he wasn't going to ruin in Solomon's rulership, God kept his promise to David, and so Solomon had peace his entire reign. Even though Solomon had moved wickedly against the Lord and was doing things that were against what God wanted him to do, God kept his promise to David. But God was already making plans that he was going to split the kingdom. The northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Israel, Judah, Jews. In the book of Hosea, God says Israel is no longer his people. He has separated. God had gave the decree to the Jews to not mess with the Israelites. That what he had done is of his will. Don't be at odds. Don't stop fighting your brother. So at that point, we became enemies. That's why God said stop fighting your enemies and don't rejoice when your enemies are being pummeled, because we became enemies. And rejoicing in your brother getting his head knocked over is not the will of the Most High God, because you wouldn't want your head getting knocked over. So don't rejoice when the Most High God is punishing your brother. Make a long story short, God, when Christ showed up, Christ was he was in the process of reconciling the kingdom, bringing in the kingdom that had the people who had been cut off. God was letting them be brought back into the fold. Well, the Jews didn't want that, right? Which is why there was a parable, right? Where the man went out to the city to find people who work for him. He found two men that worked for $1. I'm just paraphrasing. He worked for $1, right? And the men came in. They were the first ones. That's Jews. Even though they were in sin, they were still doing the things of the Most High God, right? So they were the first ones. And throughout the day, the guy went out to the town. And he was gathering people to come work for him. The man represents the master. He represents Yahanna. So at the end, where it says the last shall be first and the first shall be last, well, Israel shall be first, right? And Jews shall be last. He's saying, as they were leaving, right? The master was paying everybody $1. So the two men who were brought in first, like, yo, he's gonna pay us a lot. We've been here all day. And then when they got paid $1, they were rocked. They were upset with the master. He said, was it not in our agreement that I would pay you this much? What made you think I was gonna pay you more? Well, you brought people in after us. And so the Jews, not being the spirit of brotherhood, didn't want the Israelites to partake in the promises. That's not the spirit of brotherhood. So as a nation of people, we were all destroyed. We were all scattered. So now, fast forward, when Paul was talking, he wasn't talking to no straight up Edomite. He wasn't talking to no Ishmaelite. He was talking to the Israelites who had been scattered in those nations. Because just like us so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans, we take on the name of our captivity. We're in America, so we're Americans, right? Those in Puerto Rico, they're Puerto Ricans. Those in Guatemala are Guatemalans. See what I'm saying? We take on the name of our captivity. There's no difference. So the idea that Paul was talking to anybody else other than the Israelites is a fallacy. And we're going to get it right here real quick. Go ahead and give me that. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 6. You know.
1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 6. Howbeit we speak wisdom among them that are perfect, yet not the wisdom of this world.
Right there. Paul's saying we speak wisdom of them that are perfect. Now, those who are perfect are those who are doing the will of the Most High God, right? Those who understand what the Most High God wants. But it wasn't the wisdom of this world, because the wisdom of this world is foolishness. But Salaki, go ahead and continue reading.
Come on. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 6 continue. Yet not the wisdom of this world, nor of the princes of this world that come to naught.
So Paul said, you know, that the princes of this world, everything of this world is going to come to naught. Everything that's going on right now is going to perish. It's not going to be here anymore in the kingdom of the Most High God. All this stuff that you all love, that you put before the Most High God is not going to be here. It's coming to naught. Go ahead and continue reading.
Come. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7. But we speak the wisdom of God in a mystery, even the hidden wisdom.
So we speak the wisdom of the Most High God in a mystery. That's why Christians will never understand the Bible, because in the way they read it is not the way the Bible tells you to get the wisdom. Isaiah 28, I think it was 28:10 or 28:19, where it says precepts like precepts shall be upon precepts. So here a little, there a little. God doesn't need any cosigns, right? What I mean by that is Christians will read the Bible and say, I think what God was trying to say right here. No, that's not how we move in the I.S.U.P.K. God doesn't need any cosigns. So when we say, for God so loved the world, or God loved, what we say, well, God so loved the world, we got to find out what world he's talking about. We can't just assume that he's talking about everybody. So we use precepts upon precepts in a mystery. You want to find out what world it is, guess what? God gives you the definition of what world he's talking about. He doesn't need us to think and believe and hope on stars. Just read the Bible in the way it was meant to be read. That's why it says a mystery. It wasn't meant for everybody to get this. Right? So like, go ahead and continue reading what you got.
Come. First Corinthians chapter 2, verse 7 continue. Even the hidden wisdom which God ordained before the world unto our glory.
Right there, unto our. The Most High God ordained this wisdom unto us for our glory. This book, this is our wisdom for our glory. This is how we receive glory, by doing the things the Most High God commanded us. This is our wisdom. Anything outside of this is foolishness. So like, go ahead and continue reading.
Come. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 8. Which none of the princes of this world knew, for had they known it.
Right there. None of the princes of this world knew. So the idea that Paul was walking up to strangers, as he was walking up to Edomites and Israelites and Moabites and saying, hey, the Lord our God, our Savior, Jesus Christ, he wasn't doing it. He wanted to walk. The way they paint church and the way they paint this evangelism and all this stuff they got going on, Paul was not doing that. He wasn't walking up to strangers talking to them about something they never knew about. God says the princes of this world never knew. The people of this world never knew. They didn't know the judgments of the Most High God. They didn't know the will of God. So to think that the idea of Christianity pushes that everybody, no, God's not dealing with everybody. That's why he said our. Our is possessive. Our is not everybody. If you come to our house means me and my family. If you come to mine, that's mine. Nowhere does mine and our means yours. So like, go ahead and continue reading.
Come. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 8. Continue. Which none of the princes of this world knew, for had they known it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory.
They would not have done what?
Crucified the Lord of glory.
They would not have crucified the Lord of glory. You got to understand, even though the Hebrew Israelites were the ones who were the forefront of Christ being put up on the cross, do understand it was indeed the other nations. You have to understand the way they move was the way our people, well, I say our people, the wicked people, because you understand, like back in Maccabees, it was wicked men of Israel who joined themselves into the world to do the things of the world. So those people who crucified Christ understand that they had joined themselves into the world. They weren't of God. They were just people born of Abraham. That makes sense. But they weren't doing the will of God. That's why Christ called them hypocrites all the time. He said, do as they say, because the things they were telling you were righteous, but the way they lived was not righteous. They had already joined themselves into the world. So they themselves didn't want to be the ones to kill him, so they had the princes of the world. They did it. But understand, the princes of the world, they understood this. If they kept us in sin, they win. So think about it. A nation who has no way to repent or have remission of sin, How do we get out of slavery? How do we remove ourselves from a low state? That's what Christ came to do. He came to reconcile the kingdom. That's why he said the kingdom split will not stand. It's imperative that we join ourselves to one another. Come back and start keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. So then at that point, we'll start to rise back into our rightful place. Right? Thus said the Lord, under his jurisdiction, under his will. Not under our will, but under his will everything be established. So the whole idea that Paul was coming here and speaking to strangers, understand it was imperative for this world to continue. They have to keep us in sin. Christ dying was the repentance and remission of sin for our nation of people, which means that we are now in a place of being winners. And the only thing we have to do to be a winner is keep the law, statutes, and commandments.
That's right.
You see how easy that is? You don't have to go to war. You don't have to, God didn't say you had to pick up a rock. He didn't say you had to pick up a sword. He didn't say you had to go over here and wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. He didn't say none of that. He says, be obedient. Keep my commandments. Will you draw nigh unto me? I will draw nigh unto you. This is what they don't want you to know. That's why they ended Kanye's broadcast. When a man has that much influence, or is that influential, it's very scary because he can reach masses. The videos he does may hit 1 million views. Him out here saying, we're the Jews that the Bible speaks of. You can't find the video anymore. At this point, I wish I would have recorded it on my phone, but I didn't. I was lazy when it got sent to me. I should have known, just like our videos get taken down, that they're going to take that down. But yeah, Kanye walking around here saying we are the Jews that the Bible speaks of. It's becoming, well, Salakia, real quick. The Wallace the Most High God, Yahawashi, and the Wallace commanding during Yahanna, raising these captains, these priests, these officers. I have to say this because the work that we're doing, I know it's not going unseen because the information that we're starting to give, every person let's say not every person, rich people are starting to realize what we're talking about, that we're Israelites. They're starting to claim to be an Israelite. From Floyd Mayweather to Kanye West, a few other celebrities. I think Nick Cannon even claims to be Semitic.
Come.
They're seeing what we're doing, but they're still trying to do it their own way. It would behoove them to do what the Most High God says, and that's Zephaniah 2:1, which means gather yourself unto your own nation. He didn't say do it your own way and think that you're gonna make it. The key thing is to be obedient.
That's right.
Right? But there's something to realize that we are the people of the Bible. Right? The Salaki, that concludes my class. No, Salaki, that doesn't. Real quick, give me Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1, because I want to show you that the Most High God is not playing. The way we get the kingdom, the way we get set above all nations, is by keeping all his commandments. Thus said the Lord. Stop listening to your pastors, because your pastors are lying.
That's right.
All they want is your money. If they can get your money without doing the sermon, they would. But they gotta put on a show for you.
Right.
So go ahead and read what you got.
Come. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments.
No, some of them.
All his commandments.
You can pick and choose.
All his commandments.
Well, you really don't have to keep his commandments.
Do all his commandments.
Do all his commandments. Go ahead.
Which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth.
Right there. The Most High God was set above all nations. Again, at any point, if you feel like anything contradicts the Most High God, understand God wins. God wins. If you think Christ says something that contradicts God, you're most definitely lying to yourself.
That's right.
But if you think that, understand God wins. If you think Paul said something that contradicts the Most High God, understand that when it comes down to God and Paul, God wins. If you think any disciple said anything that contradicts what the Most High God has stated in his book, understand he is the author of his book. How can any man contradict him on the book that he wrote?
Right.
God wins. So stop with the buffoonery and saying, well, Paul said this, and well, John said this, and well, Matthew. Understand that none of them Only person who moved outside the will of the Most High God was Judas. He thought he was better than the master. Outside of that, everybody else has done exactly what the Most High God has commanded them to do. So don't think for 1 minute that you think that these disciples were moving of their own will and of their own sheer luck and was rewriting history. Stop it. It's a lot that concludes my time. I'm Priest and Officer Mataza with the I.S.U.P.K. That's the Israelite School, the Universal Practical Knowledge, and the lead commanding General Yahanna. Again, we started off on the 25th, on West Harlem, New York. We've been doing this since 1969. And it's bringing the truth to the so-called Blacks, Hispanic, and Native Americans here in the Americas. You are the Israelites the Bible speaks of. I'm about to go ahead and give these security announcements. We are the I.S.U.P.K, started out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brother or sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to share themselves with the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There is another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After this 6-month period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment, found in Numbers 18:21 and Malachi 3:8-10. My Ashur, which means tenth in Hebrew, 10% of every penny of any increase of Yahweh gives you, give to the Treasury Department or teacher. Priest funds, free will offering for priests is not mandatory. Whatsoever amount you will like, that's what you can give. I think the next upcoming Holy Convocations, I believe, is the Feast of Hanukkah. That day to be pronounced at a later time. Again, you want to be a new brother, new sister in the school, make sure you wear your all black and make sure you get in touch with the teacher in your zone. With that being said, men of Israel, I.S.U.P.K, Shabbat, I.S.U.P.K, Barak, Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Brakatham. Yachimata, Sar, face the sisters, courtesy salute to the sisters, men of Israel. Shabbat, I.S.U.P.K, Barak, Yahweh Shemar Hashem Yahshua.
Yahweh Shemar Lataba Hashem Yahweh.
Yachimata, class dismissed.